Today, we look at the future of Iowa football. Kirk Ferentz has been able to pull his program out of a downturn multiple times in his career. Does he got one more in him? Today, Locked On Hawkeye.
You are Locked On Hawkeyes, your daily podcast on the Iowa Hawkeyes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, welcome in. I'm Trent Condon, and this is the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast. Thanks for making Locked On Hawkeyes your first listen every day. We're available wherever you find podcasts. You can also watch the show on YouTube. While you're there, hit the subscribe button. Just takes a moment and helps us get in front of more Hawkeye fans. Well, we got some big questions to get into today. The future of Iowa football. What is it going to look like? Kirk Ferentz, if he decides to make a return, and it sounds like he will, for 2025, what is that going to mean for this football program? And does he have another resurgence upon him? We will get into that. We got Iowa basketball after a dominating performance against New Hampshire last night. Still one of the worst teams that I have ever seen make their way into Carver-Hawkeye Arena. There's been some dregs. That New Hampshire outfit, they were brutal. We'll talk some basketball, though, and get set for what's happening later in the week. Women's team back in action in a day. And, of course, we will see the men's team Friday night as they go out to Wisconsin. And now it is all Big Ten for the foreseeable future. Plenty of basketball talk. Plus, John Bowenkamp is going to join us from the Associated Press on the Hawkeye beat. And we will talk with him coming up here in just a moment. But we kick things off with the big question of the day, and it is the future of Iowa football. After yesterday, we react to what we saw in the bowl game, and we started to have some of those big picture questions because on its own, it's a bowl loss. It's an exhibition loss. In the grand scheme of things, it doesn't mean a whole lot, right? Losing, winning the Music City Bowl, it's really not going to change, I don't think, anybody's perception of what Iowa football is and what Iowa football still can be going forward. And that's where we begin today's conversation about if there is another opportunity for this football program to pull themselves forward. We've talked a ton looking towards next season about how difficult this schedule is going to be. You couple that with not just what's happening when you add 3 playoff teams to your schedule from this year in Indiana and Oregon and Penn State that all be part of the schedule next season, but also you see what's happening around you. You see what's happening at Nebraska. They're going into the portal. They are investing heavily in next year's roster to improve what they were this season as they finally get bowl eligible for the first time in a decade. You can argue the merits, but Wisconsin, they're doing a ton in the portal, trying to turn around a disappointing year. Even Minnesota is doing some big things in the portal. 2 former 4-star wide receivers are joining the group there. Minnesota is getting work done. So you see your neighbors are all doing work, are all doing things, and your protected rivals are all doing something that you're not doing. Iowa has 2 guys in the portal in a year where you lose 23. This season, I really believed coming into it that Iowa was going to be more active because I know a lot of people looked at last season and they didn't do a whole lot in the portal and just thought that that was going to be what it was going to be going forward. But remember, 2 years ago, they were incredibly active. They got Cade McNamara. They got Caleb Brown. They got Nick Jackson. They got Deshaun Parker. They got a bunch of guys. What was it? 8, 9 guys that they got out of the portal. And that was kind of the first main year of the portal. Felt like, all right, Kirk Ferentz is willing to evolve. Kirk Ferentz has been able to pull himself out of some downturns of Iowa football. And his longevity, the consistency that you get, that's what you're buying, right? It's milquetoast. It can be a little bit boring. These games can be frustrating, but at minimum, you're going to be a winning program, a solid program. And there are dozens of programs that would trade to be in the spot that Iowa football is. But when you're living it, when you're in the middle of it, you get tired of it. And I think that's where the fan base is. As you look through this year, 8-5, 6-3 record in the Big Ten. You tie for 5th place in an 18-team league after winning the division title 2 of the last 3 years, finishing in the top half of your division every year for the last decade. That's what has happened for Iowa. However, look at those downturns and when they came, beginning of the time, after year 2, you saw some improvements at the end of 2000, but was this going to be the guy? They were. 2001 happened. They get to the Alamo Bowl. They win that one. And Kirk Ferentz announced that Iowa football is back. Then he coupled that with 2002, 03, 04, 3 consecutive 10-win seasons, 3 consecutive top 10 finishes, bowl wins in the Outback Bowl, in the Capital One Bowl, and Iowa football was rolling until the downturn happened. 2007. Looked like very well that could be it. You had a resurgence at the end of that 2008 season. The back half of the year, Iowa was playing as well as anybody, which turned into 2009, the Orange Bowl year, was able to pull himself out. Again, the downturn happened. 2012, 13. After 2014, it looked like Kirk Ferentz, this was going to be it a decade ago. What did they do? A 12-0 regular season, a Rose Bowl appearance in the Big Ten championship game for the first time. All these things happened for the first time under Kirk Ferentz in 2015 after a downturn in the program. And now we go to today. 8-5 for most programs is not a downturn, but we know you have to look at more than just the record. You have to look at more than just Iowa winning 36 games over the last 4 years, because there's more to it. And we've watched as inept of quarterback play as we've ever seen. The hope is that now rid of the former offensive coordinator and quarterback coach that didn't know his way around quarterbacks, that now that quarterback room has been at least gutted, that we can get back. I think a lot of us, we have seen so much bad quarterback play that we're, in a way, just enamored with the guy that's okay in Brendan Sullivan. Because the quarterback play has been so bad for the last 4 years that anything that resembles decent gets you excited. And I get that, because it's been that bad. But is there some Stockholm syndrome happening here? We just see a guy that looks okay, and he looks great in our eyes because of just how bad that it's been. The question for me is, Kirk Ferentz have one more of these? Can he build the program up one more time? You go through some of the tweaks that were made, some of the changes that they made in order to get there. After 2014, it was a change in the way they went about scheduling their practices. They went to morning practices, early morning practices, and they believe that that was one of the reasons that they had that 2015 undefeated regular season, that they were able to do that, and that was one of the reasons. We've seen the defense be able to evolve and go from, we're playing 4-3, we're playing cover 4 on the back 4, and that's what we're going to do every single time. And what Phil Parker did, implementing the cash position, going away from the 4-3 defense that had been a staple of Iowa football and evolving. We saw the evolution this year of the run game. And though there are still zone blocking schemes, improving upon those schemes, evolving, we have seen it. But there's one more thing that needs to be done. There's one more big step forward. And the question is, can Kirk Ferentz make it one final time? And before we get to next season, he will turn 70 years old. I am learning as I get older, you become more and more set in your ways. It's more and more difficult the older you get. I'm 44. I got a ways to go still, but you find yourself digging your heels in what you've done in the past, the way things have done. And because you've had success doing it a particular way, it becomes more and more difficult to change. Do we believe that Kirk Ferentz one final time can make the necessary changes, be it improved quarterback play, increased tempo, taking the leash off the quarterback, going out and spending to get a top-level quarterback, whatever it is? Because what's happening right now and the way the roster looks next season, this does not look to be a great team. This appears to be a team that is going to struggle to even get to bowl eligibility next season. It has those feelings of 97-98. I've talked about it a lot before. Every day, as you know, I was there at the forefront. Went to every game my senior year of high school, 97, 1998, my freshman year at the University of Iowa. I was there in the stands for each and every home game and watched the final year of Hayden Fry and how quickly that thing fell apart. 97, hugely disappointing. Tons of talent on that team. The injury to Matt Sherman derailed it. They had what proved to be the national champion on the ropes in the big house in Michigan. They were the better team that day. They came up short. That aside. And then all of a sudden 98 happened and it completely collapsed. And you look at next season, would it be a surprise if this thing completely collapses? It's happened before. Now, Iowa went 4-8 in 2012. And you look through that squad and you look at that team and they weren't very good. 4-8 happened again? Yeah, absolutely. You look at who they play. That was a year that Iowa not just lost to Iowa State, they lost to Central Michigan, blown out by Penn State, beat at Northwestern, at Indiana, lost to Purdue, blown out at Michigan, and then wrapped it up with a loss against Nebraska. You look at next year, I don't think it's a stretch to say we could be seeing something very similar. Is that it? Is that how Kirk Ferentz wants to go out? Those are some of the questions we're going to be talking about here in the coming days. We're going to talk some basketball and some football coming up with the AP writer from the Associated Press, John Bowenkamp. He's going to join us as we roll through on a Wednesday. This is Locked On Hawkeyes. Look, I love going to live events, whether it's sports, music, theater, comedy. One of my favorite memories, attending a concert here recently. Went to Wrigley Field when Pearl Jam was in Wrigley Field. And guess what? They're coming back next summer. The excitement, the energy, it's absolutely incredible. And I love that every single time. Now, Game Time has made it even easier for you to get tickets for your favorite events with their new feature. It's called Game Time Picks. This feature filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of different tickets. Recently, I was looking for tickets for a upcoming concert my wife was looking for using the Game Time app, and with Game Time Fix, I found amazing deals, so I could even see the view from the seats before hitting that purchase button. The super deal was impressive, offering great seats at unbeatable prices. Plus, the app's all-in pricing shows the total cost up front with no surprise fees at checkout. The best part, when I won, I got paid instantly. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and make sure you use the code It's Locked On College for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code Locked On College, LOCKEDONCOLLEGE, Locked On College for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game Time.
John Bowenkamp, Happy New Year to you. How are you?
Happy New Year. I'm good. How are you doing?
Doing well. Football in a second. Let's do basketball first. I don't want to spend a ton of time on it. Thank God non-conference play is over, John. I'll just say that. You were in the building last night. And I applaud you. I really do, having to cover that game. At least you saw guys, a lot of guys that probably won't see the floor very much coming up here into the Big Ten. But my question to you was, and I think I saw somebody, might have been Lost that tweeted this. This might have been the second best crowd of the entire non-conference home slate, other than the Iowa State game. Is that true?
I would say so. I mean, part of it was, and you'll laugh when I say this, but part of it was they sold a big block of tickets to people in Fort Madison. Because every year, for my hometown, the Chamber of Commerce always does this thing called Fort Madison Day, and they get a block of tickets, and there were an awful lot of Fort Madison people there last night. So my hometown showed out for the game. But no, I mean, it was one of those things. It's like, okay, it's a Monday night during a holiday week.
Yeah.
There was a package deal, I think, where you could get 4 tickets and 4 hot dogs. I don't know, something like that. And I think a lot of people snatched them up and thought, well, okay, we'll go to a game. And so, yeah, it was a nice crowd. It was, people that hadn't probably seen a game in a while, and it was actually a lot of fun. I mean, there were a lot of people there. I mean, they all left, in the last couple of media timeouts.
Sure.
But I mean, there was a nice crowd there.
What's going on with Owen Freeman?
I think a friend said it was just kind of a lower leg thing, which means probably maybe tweaked an ankle or his foot or something. But he said he expects him back for Friday night's game. And again, to me, it felt more like a load management deal, that it's like, and when you think about it, you didn't really need him last night. And so it's like, okay, you get him some rest, get him ready for the Wisconsin game and get him ready for the rest of the Big Ten. And like you said, too, some guys got to play last night, a lot of minutes that haven't gotten to play a lot. And you never know when you might need somebody at some point during the season. So I thought from that aspect, it was good to get some of those guys into the game.
2 of those guys, Riley Mulvey, I think has shown enough in a pinch. Yeah. He needs to be out there. I think certainly ahead of Evan Bronze. If you need another big out there, foul trouble, whatever. And Chris Taggio, can he give him something this year in that moment? Maybe they just need a more athletic guy out there because of matchup. Can he give him that 4 or 5 minutes in some random Big Ten game on a Wednesday night? Is Taggio there yet?
Yeah, but he's closer than he was maybe a month ago.
Okay.
And you can kind of see just kind of the way he played last night. There was the one play, when he caught a pass inside and flipped it in for a layup that it was a pretty athletic play. I mean, you can say, okay, who they were playing against and all that, but you kind of looked last night at what some of these guys could do. and just he's got the athleticism. It's just the understanding of the game, the physicality, the IQ stuff of the game that he admitted he's learning still. And so I think that I think he will be. He could be a factor by the end of the year, but right now you can see he's improving. He's a lot better now than he was a month ago.
Can this team win 10 games in the Big Ten?
Yeah, because I think they're all going to win 10 games. I think the Big Ten is going to be all 10 and
an 18-way tie.
Yeah, it's going to be an 18-way tie. Everybody's going to go 10 and 10. And we were talking about this last night. I said, and I've said, maybe I've said this before in here, but I said there's going to be some really good basketball teams that are going to be 8 and 12 in Big Ten play, or 9 and 11, just because they're going to chew each other up. And so this is going to be kind of an education for a lot of these coaches this year. How do you handle the West Coast trips? Whether you go to California or you do the Oregon, Washington trip, how do you handle that? And then how do you handle it coming back? Those are some of the things and I think everybody's going to be learning that. And you look at those schools out West, how are they going to learn, taking 5 trips each? So, like I said, there's going to be some really good basketball teams that are going to suffer Big Ten losses. That may be 9 and 11 in Big Ten play, but they still might be good enough to make a case to be in the tournament. So
let me pick both of your brains on this, and it has to do with the West Coast teams, particularly UCLA and Oregon. And I'll throw Michigan in because I think Michigan has surprised some people too. Has UCLA become the team to beat? Trent, we'll go with you first.
I told you this probably about a month ago. I really like this UCLA team. I got to see the travel first. I think they're the most talented team. Yeah. I think they might be the team that has the best chance of even getting to an Elite Eight, because I think that might be the high water mark for anybody in this league. It would be UCLA. I just got to see the travel and the way that it works. It was one thing for football. We're talking about 3 trips over the course of the year.
Way more.
There's going to be a lot more trips here, and how that is going to impact all the teams, and specifically UCLA.
Yeah, you made that point a second ago, John, about the travel. Who do you think the team to beat is in the conference?
A lot of people are saying Michigan State, and I don't buy that because you never know what can happen. But if you talk about the West Coast teams, you mentioned UCLA, and I think they're a really good team. I think Oregon is really good, and I think he set himself up. When I talked to Dana Altman this summer, he was one of my Blue Ribbon previews. He talked about he wanted a deep team. He wanted it to be a deep team because he knew he was going to have to take 5 trips east. And he said, I know what the travel is going to be like, so I've got to have 13 guys that can play. Mm-hmm. And I do think they're probably one of the deeper teams in the league. And I think he's kind of built them for what is coming up. But, he's a smart coach. He knows what's going on. That's why I kind of give them maybe a little bit of an edge. Let's see what they do here. And I'm like you. I want to see how they all handle the travel. But let's see what they do here in the first few weeks. If they're at the top of the league going into February, I think they win it.
Yeah, and I was looking at Oregon. They got the road trip out to Michigan State at the beginning of February. That one very well could dictate who does win this crown. Ready for a little football?
Let's do it.
Sure, why not?
All right, John, not to put you on the spot right away, but, Ken and I were talking top of the show. It feels like the end of times are here. And not this year, next year, but it's definitely here. It feels different. And maybe it's the disappointment of the season and just a day after, the way that it comes to a close. But does it feel different for you? Somebody on the beat, somebody that's in the press box, does it feel different when you look kind of big picture at Iowa football and the future of the program?
It feels like 2014. It feels like the end of that year. When you think back to that year where they were 8-5, I think, or 8, whatever, and you didn't know what the quarterback situation was. There were, Kirk, there was a lot of heat on Kirk, about Jake Rudock and playing him at quarterback and all that. And then the next year they, go undefeated in regular season. I don't think that's going to happen next year. Right. But it does feel that way. And I remember saying to somebody at that time, and that was my first year full time covering them. And I was like, it just felt stale.
Yeah.
And that kind of is the feeling I have right now, that this is a stale program, that this was a team that really, in my mind, in a lot of ways underachieved this year, especially on the defensive side.
Yep.
And so, there's some work to do in this offseason. And it's not just that quarterback. I know everybody's talking about that today, but there's some problems on the back end of that defense that you're going to have to fix. There's going to be, you're going to have to replace two of the best linebackers you've ever had, in the last 25 years. There's a lot of work that has to be done in this off season. And let's kind of see where this goes. I'm still, I'm always one of those ones that likes to be patient to see where they are in August. But right now, there's a lot of work in my mind that needs to be done.
Yeah, and 10 years ago, the program felt still, and your head coach was 60. Now it feels still, and your head coach is 70. I just think, and he's been great for the state. The money that he and his wife have contributed to projects around Iowa City, et cetera, et cetera. It just feels like, John, that you're just postponing the inevitable. And it's why didn't we're going to look back this time next year or the year after that? Why didn't they do it after the Missouri, after the 2024, when everybody saw the writing on the wall? Because the schedule is going to be difficult next year. They lost one quarterback, apparently, Perbula. They were willing to pay him just as much money, but he liked the offense better at Missouri. So that's where he's going to go. It just feels like you're, kicking the can down the road. If nothing is done, and I don't think anything is going to be done.
And I don't know if you do. I mean, because especially where he's at on the wins, it would look really ugly if you just say, okay, you got to go.
No, I agree. It's tough. Yes.
And so, I mean, there's a lot of factors there, and I know it's easy for fans to say, oh, you got to get rid of him, you got to do this, you got to do that. But there are some things there. It's just I think honestly, I think if they would have won yesterday, I don't know what his team. I don't know. Maybe he wouldn't have come back. Maybe he would have said, okay, I'm going to retire. I do think it's sooner rather than later. And there's my gut feeling, and I know nothing behind the scenes or anything, but my gut feeling is this coming season will be his last. I mean, I just see a lot of these coaches getting out of this game right now and seeing where it's going, and I could see that happening to him. And then you make the change. But right now, it's like, if he's going to be here, okay, what work are you going to do to revive this? And that is going to be interesting to see how this kind of pans out here in the next couple of months.
Because they did, after 2014, they went to the morning practices. We saw a couple of years ago the evolution of the cash position. There have been tweaks, there have been changes, and I think you're right. It does feel stale. Something needs to be done. It doesn't have to be major, but something needs to be done. Is Kirk willing to do it at 69 years old?
We'll see.
I mean, I trust Tim Lester. I really do. I think he knows what he's doing. He's had a year now in this program. He knows what to do now. And I think he's going to be looking for that, whether it's in the quarterbacks he's got now, whether what's in the portal, whatever, I don't think they need to be stacking quarterbacks here. I don't think you need 9 on the roster, but I do think you have to look and see who's out there, and can you afford them is the next question. And then go get them, try to go get them. If not, this is what you've got. This is what you got to work with, develop them in the next few months. And so that is, to me, one of the biggest questions is, how does that position play out? And again, there's other positional questions that I think really need to be answered.
John Bowenkamp, Associated Press, Iowa College Hoops, HawkeyeNation.com. Thank you, John. Appreciate you coming on. Happy New Year to you. And we'll talk to you.
Happy New Year to you guys. Yep. Have a good one. Have a good holiday. See you guys.
Yep. See you, buddy. John Bowenkamp, so we check in on the Hawks.
Today's episode of Locked On Hawkeyes is brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL playoffs, well, they're almost here, and it's not too late to get in on the regular season action as we get ready for Week 18 with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers can finish the season strong with $250 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Simple as that. Not only can you bet on who's going to win the game, but FanDuel, they have so many different bets available for you. Players that are going to score a touchdown, how many points each team is going to score. Their future market is absolutely incredible. Maybe you're taking a peek forward and looking who's going to make the conference championship, who's going to win the conference championship in the Big Ten this year. UCLA, your betting favorite, but you want to bet on the Hawkeyes for the first regular season crown since 1979. You get them at 75-1 on FanDuel, and so much more. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your chance at $250 in bonus bets. That's right, $250 in bonus bets. All you have to do is win your first $5 bet. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Trent Condon back with you one final time on the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast. Thanks for being with us and making Locked On Hawkeyes your first listen every day. So we talked a little bit with John Bowenkamp there about the basketball win last night as Iowa was able to run past that ugly, brutal New Hampshire team. But let's take a look forward now. And as Iowa gets ready for their matchup Friday night, they make their way to the Kohl Center to face the Badgers. Iowa currently is 49th in the net rankings, 42nd at the Ken Pomeroy numbers so far this season. Now, the big number for Iowa right now is they are 0-3 in quadrant one, meaning the top three opponents that they played that are in that first quadrant, they do not have a win. All three of those teams are really good. Utah State, they got a tough matchup against Alfred's Boys tonight. Nevada, but they're off to an 11-1 start. They sit at number 26 in the net rankings. The loss to Michigan, a 2-pointer where Iowa had a shot at the end. They sit at number 16. Of course, Iowa State sitting at number 6. We know Iowa had the lead in that one and let it slip away. A nice win against Utah, a decent win against Washington State on their resume. Both of those neutral court victories, they will help, but Iowa needs to find a way to get some top-end victories. And in fact, the opportunity is going to start on Friday night. That road game against Wisconsin, who is ranked 34 in the net, that would be a quad one victory. There's going to be plenty of opportunities in the Big Ten, and you look through and you go through the slate. Iowa's got the road trip coming up out to LA at USC and at UCLA in the middle of January. Later on this season, when they go out east against Rutgers and Maryland, road victories are going to be a premium, and then holding serve at home is going to be incredibly important. We go to this beginning stretch of the season. These first three games now here in January, I believe Iowa needs to go a minimum of 2-1 and maybe even 3-0 just because of how difficult the schedule is going to get going forward. Penn State's improved this year. You got to go to Ohio State. You know they're going to be good. Maryland, I think they're an excellent team. Oregon's a top 10 team. They come into Carver this year. And then the end of the slate at Illinois, at Northwestern, home for Michigan State, and at Nebraska is going to be incredibly difficult. It is paramount for this Iowa team to get off to a good start. And if you can get a win at the Kohl Center, I just don't think this is a great Wisconsin team. They got some dudes, no doubt, but this is a winnable basketball game. Iowa needs to get it done, and it needs to start on Friday. We'll talk more about that game and start to break it down as we get through later in the week. Also, going to have some fun and a look back at the year that was. We'll have that for you tomorrow. A look back at the year that was in Hawkeye athletics for 2024 as we flip the calendar to 2025. Hope everybody has a great new year. Thanks for being with us, and thanks for making Locked On Hawkeyes your first listen every day. We're here with you every single day, reacting to the games, being with you throughout the course of the season. That's what we do, and happy to be a part of it here on the Locked On Network. We'll talk to you again tomorrow. Go Hawks.